Do you like the playing of guitarists like Nile Rodgers? Of course you do. Fancy having a go at playing like them? Definitely. It's not quite as easy as he makes it look though, is it? Well, don't worry. If you're just getting started out playing a bit of funk guitar, I have 3 things that'll hopefully set you on the right path. Alright, first of all then we're going to need the right sort of chord sequence. And I have here set up a loop following a simple 2 chord pattern, moving between the chords A minor and D major. Now this is what you might call a Dorian chord change, where we're moving from a minor root chord up an interval of a 4th to a major chord. In your standard minor key, both of those chords would be minor, but the Dorian version is where we play that 2nd chord as a major. And this is a really common chord change throughout the style. You hear it in Lady Marmalade, Le Freak, Uptown Funk, loads of different songs. If you are not sure how to find the interval of a 4th, it's delightfully easy on the guitar. All you do is take your starting note, in this case the 5th fret on the 6th string, and you just travel 1 string towards the floor, and that's the note that's a 4th above. So we're playing our 1st chord starting from the A as a minor, 2nd chord starting from the D as a major. If you'd like to know more about the Dorian mode, I just so happen to have made a video on it. Please do consider watching it, after you've watched all of this one obviously, and liked and subscribed. Thank you very much. Okay, so our loop goes like this. But we're not really pulling our weight in the funky department if we're just playing the chords like that. So let's look at some different ways we can approach it. So one of the things you'll want to consider when you're playing a kind of funky guitar part is the chord voicings that you're playing. Now the full-on bar shapes I was playing there work perfectly fine within certain styles. Here they're going to sound a little bit cluttered. There's a few too many strings being used for that to sound convincingly in the style, I would say. So what we're going to do is just zero in on the top part of each chord. So for that A minor chord, I'm going to play it like this. It's kind of an abbreviated version of this full bar chord, where I'm just barring the top 3 strings at the 5th fret and then using the 3rd finger to play the note A at the 7th fret on the D string. So we've just cut out some of that bass there. So we're going to play the A minor chord like that. And then when I change to the D chord, I'm going to do this making as little effort as possible. And I'm not going to play a D major chord. I'm going to play a D7, D dominant 7 chord, which is a perfectly acceptable substitute in this case. And I'm going to do that simply by adding the little finger to the B string at the 7th fret. If you're into things like chord voicings, you might recognise that as the top part of this D7 bar shape here. So we've made really short work of that chord change, just moving that single note like that. So A minor, D7, like so. So the movement between the chords sounds nice and smooth. We're going to need a bit more groove on it than that though, so let's have a look at that next. Now, the rhythmic pattern you're going to want to acquaint yourself with very closely when you're playing this style is a semiquaver rhythm. This is where we're playing 4 strums or 4 notes each beat, adding up to 16 notes in a bar, which is why some people insist on calling them 16th notes. That's a little bit too thuddingly literal for my tastes. I'm going to call them semiquavers, because that is what they're called. Okay, so a good way to start practicing this, if you've not done this before, is just to do it on some muted strings, and it's good to add a little accent, a little emphasis on the main numbered beat. So in other words, something like 1E and a 2E and a 3E and a 4E and a... So you're just leaning on that main beat a little bit more heavily. But notice we're ending up with 4 strums each beat. And once you're doing that nice and loosely, try and combine that with the beat of whatever you're playing to. So if we take our loop here, it's quite fast. Okay, we're getting somewhere now. Let's try and combine that rhythm with those chord shapes. A really important aspect here is we're not going to get rid of those muted strums. They're going to play quite a key feature of it because we want to keep that kind of semiquaver momentum going and just dip into the chords every now and then. So I'll do it just on the A minor chord to start with. Now, when I play that chord, notice I'm releasing the pressure very, very quickly, barely holding the chord down at all. So we just get a little hint of it. I'll do that strumming pattern really, really slowly. So I'm going... That's just one example among many. You could dip in and play the chord wherever feels natural to you. So we've got that happening. And then when we change to the D7, I'm just going to do the exact same thing. As I say, the really important thing there is that you keep that strumming pattern happening all the way through. So let's see if we can combine that with our loop. Okay, so we've got something a little bit more convincing now. Let's see what else we might be able to do with these chord voicings though. Now, if playing a whole 4 strings per chord feels a little bit too much like hard work for you, let's try cutting that in half. We're going to play each chord using just 2 strings. Now, obviously, as any student of music theory will know, you can't actually play a chord technically with only 2 different notes in it, but the backing is doing a lot of the work. That's giving us a lot of harmonic context for this. So we can pick and choose our notes with a little bit more care. So what I'm going to do, first of all, for that A minor chord, I'm going to play both the B and E strings at the 8th fret. So what we've ended up with there is a G note and a C note. And you might be wondering what that has to do with an A minor chord. Well, over the A bass, those 2 notes will provide us with an A minor 7 chord. again works perfectly fine in this context. And then you've also got these fingers spare to mute the other strings, so you can really strum with a lot of wild abandon. And then when we go to the D7 chord, all I'm going to do is just move this third finger back to the 7th fret on the B string, leaving that little finger on the 8th fret on the E string. So we end up with an F sharp and a C, which on their own sound a little bit arresting, but again, over the context of that D note, they combine to provide us with a D7 sound. So our part is literally going to go. Let's see how that works. So to start to assimilate some of these ideas into your own playing, I would highly recommend practicing them with some kind of backing. Maybe one you've made yourself, maybe a drum loop you find here on YouTube, there are lots of them, to really help pin down the rhythmic and timing aspects of this. That would be really, really crucial to this style. But a few ideas to get you started there. Really hope that was useful. If so, please consider liking and subscribing, etc. And I'll see you with something else very soon. Cheers.